Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Katie Huff with Katie Huff Ministries with Setting Yourself Free. And this is a podcast where we want you to walk out the calling on your life to be, do, and have all that God has you doing and for you. And I am thrilled that I get to have Dr. Troy Spurill from Synapse Center of Health and Healing, which is one of the greatest functional centers across the country that I actually participate in, and I would encourage you to check them out at synapse.com. And if you want to have that meeting with them, I keep saying meeting, and I know it's not a meeting, but a discovery call to find out what is in the best interest of you, you're going to want to click on and go to officialsynapse.com, discovery call, and get set up like I did and have it change your world. So I am thrilled to let you know that, again, you want to go to YouTube, subscribe to KDF Ministries. You need to go to Spotify, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Apple. We're everywhere. We don't want you to miss this because today we get to talk to you about what you think about comes about. And I know that sounds pretty profound, but I am thrilled that we have a medical expert that can tell you why it's very important that we guard our hearts and minds. So thank you, Dr. Spurill, for being here. It's always a blessing. And I'm excited for you to share with people how our emotions definitely has a huge impact on our physical bodies. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure and an honor. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, the emotional part of health is one that we haven't really done a good job with in our current health system. So, when it comes to just who we are as humans, we're basically uh, part flesh, part spirit. So there's a spiritual component, and then the flesh part is really broken down into the mental, chemical, and physical part of well-being. And so we'll focus on the mental side of things. My favorite area of the brain is actually the basal ganglia, where it sets the idle speed for anxiety and depression, but it sets the tone for muscles and emotions. It's why our muscles get tight when we have stress. So when we have a stressful thought, it can actually manifest into a physical problem. So we see it with muscle tension, but it's also very, very true with how our organs work and how our different systems within the body work. So our emotions are really, really important. And we were talking before coming on here just about one particular emotion that blocks healing, and that's lack of forgiveness.
That's huge.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of those things that we talk. I actually do a class with all of our people that start with Synapse called the Mindset Class to help set the stage and to teach them how to recognize when their emotions are actually getting in the way of their healing. If it's blocking a healing, and our emotions and our mindset can actually help in the healing, or it can actually shut down the healing. So I'm going to go through a couple of things that happen physically when we have deep, hard emotions, I'm going to say.
Okay, great.
So one of my favorite researchers did some investigation a good 30 years ago now. And he found that when people are in a state of anger, their cells literally fold over like a frightened child. So anger and fear, the cells will fold over onto themselves. And so all of our cells have these little receptors, and that's where the nutrients come in and bind to the receptor and then get into the cell. But if they're covered up because of the state of anger or fear, then the nutrients can't get in. So even if you're eating a perfect diet, but you're living in that emotional state, then you can't absorb the nutrients and our body starts to deteriorate. Now, the same researcher also found when people are in a state of love, their cells are wide open. So all of these nutrients just flow right into the cell. And so think about that, what it means from a faith perspective.
Amen. I mean, it's
We
like,
are not meant to fear anything except for God and being absent from God. That's it. Why is that? Because when we're in that constant state of love, He has equipped us to just have all of those nutrients flow into us. When you have a lack of forgiveness, we start to create resentment, and resentment is just shy of anger and fear. So as far as how it impacts our cells. So the first thing you can do to start healing, if I say the word, who do you need to forgive? If someone pops in your head, then it's important to start the process of forgiving them.
Amen.
And here's how you can tell if you haven't forgiven them, because it has to be forgiven at a heart level. The Bible talks about 77 times 7 times. It's a lot of times we have to forgive because we're not good at it,
Right.
is the real reason. And this is how you can tell if you have truly forgiven someone, and it's based on the words you choose to use long after the event happened when you're talking about them.
Right.
If you're making fun of them, if there's resentment still in the tone, if there's anger, you have not forgiven them. If you have love and empathy for that person, you've gotten to the place of true forgiveness.
Mm. Wow. That's amazing. To just do a checkup from the neck up of
Yep.
how you are speaking either resentment or forgiveness or, just peace and, you know, setting them free from
Yep.
taking up space in your head.
Yeah, and as a Christian, you can surrender that trauma, that event to God, give it to God,
Mhm.
and that's how you can land on that heart place forgiveness.
Right. That's
Very, very important. And we've done everything right with patients where we have worked with their labs and their chemistry, and we've worked with them physically, and we get them sleeping right and eating right. But if you're not sleeping right, eating right, and thinking right, then you don't get the full healing. So the thinking right part is very, very important.
and who would have thought? I
Good
think,
one.
I'm working out, I'm
Yeah.
eating right, but man, I still don't feel peace. Hmm.
Yes. Yep. Exactly right.
My little three P's, you pause, you pray, and you don't do anything until you have peace.
That's right. So
Wow.
it's amazingly it can be very healing. And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing coming up is a seminar on trauma, and part of my next book has a whole section on how we're equipped. And so I want to read. This will be the first time I actually read it anywhere. But we're going to be. I was just putting a little commercial together, and I want to talk about this because there's so many things that are happening in the world, and it's very easy for us to feel like victims of our
Mm,
circumstances. And so I want to just share with something I've written here, and I took it from, of all places, I heard the beginning part of this on a reel on Facebook, and it was just genius. And so um, it was said by Ty Serrato, the first part, but the second part about the victim component is what I've written. And so we're going to be working with this, but this is called Heroes and Villains. And this is what we see within our world. Heroes and villains always have the same backstory: pain. The difference is what they choose to do about it. A villain says, "The world hurt me, I'll hurt it back." The hero says, "The world hurt me, I'm not going to let it hurt anybody else ever again." Heroes use pain, villains are used by it. Victims are a potential third category here. Victims are potential heroes that the enemy, the master villain, has tricked us into thinking they don't matter, that their wound has incapacitated them for life. Believing that lie then holds the victim in bondage for as long as they believe that lie. God has more for you by identifying the lie, rebuking the lie, then turning your test to a testimony, your mess to a message. You'll become the hero that says, "I'm not going to let it hurt anyone else."
that's awesome. That is
Yep.
so huge. And
Yep.
I totally agree with our tests become our testimonies
Yeah.
because that's even with my setting yourself free platform. My test was my testimony to set
Yep.
me free in order to obviously encourage other people to be set free from whatever is holding them back because we don't get a redo. We get a one-time chance to be, do, and have all that we were created to be. And it's not like this is not a dress rehearsal, Dr.
No.
Spurl.
Nope. That's
And
right. And that when you're in the darkness of the valley, when you're going through a season that's really, really tough, some people just sit down and stay in that darkness. They define themselves, their identity, by their diagnosis. They define themselves by their circumstances. And we know that the one thing that cures darkness is light.
Hmm.
And it's important to keep going. So you keep seeking God, and He will light the path to get you out of that dark season, that dark spot. And then that's how you turn a test into a testimony, or a mess into a message. Keep seeking God, and God gives us very good instruction. Guard your thoughts takes a whole new meaning when we're talking about what we are thinking, and when we're in a dark season and a dark place. He has equipped us to work better when we guard our thoughts.
Mm.
That's
Amen.
just the way we've been made.
Absolutely. Well, and here's something I was thinking about as you were saying that is, you know, John 10:10 says the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And so with that, I have had a lot of women that I have ministered to in my women's retreat that they, and even men, will go into the cave.
Yep.
And I would love for you to talk about isolating yourself in those times of hurt or you're not feeling good about someone, and what that does is it opens the door.
Yep. Absolutely. So when it comes to pain, when it comes to just retracting from life, because of the pain, there are good ways to do it and bad ways. So we're meant to be in this world, but not of it. So that means we need to take a break from things a lot of times. That's okay. When we are alone, it's okay to be still, but be still and know that I am God. So
Amen.
when you are being still, you are meant to seek God during that time. Have a good cry, seek God, and then that becomes your step, and He is your strength to actually take that next step. So when you go alone, to be alone, it's not to then numb your reality with pain meds, or sleep things away. It's okay to recover. It's okay to work on yourself and your relationship with God during that time, and to get some of your reserves built back in. But we're not meant to stay in that state.
Mm-mm.
We're not meant to be isolated. We need to help, ask for help. Sometimes, many times, that is with God directly, and sometimes it's with people that have been placed here. And especially as times get tough, it's important for believers to be surrounded by other believers.
Amen.
The pure power of prayer is unbelievable, as far as how it can help get people out of that darkness.
Yes, and amen for sure.
Yeah.
Because, I always say the enemy does the tap dance on your head when you isolate for too long, and when you keep
Yep.
replaying the reels of he said, she said,
Yep.
and went down. It's not the best avenue of getting out of that depression, which obviously affects our body physically. So the
Yeah.
mind body connection is not separate.
Well, let me walk through what happens when you replay those stories in your head, because, like I said, every time that you have a that area of the brain, the basal ganglia, when it's wound up, it causes muscle tension. If it's wound up too fast, it can cause anxiety, or too slow, it can cause depression. And so there is an actual physical output to your thoughts. So your brain, when you think about something, it will collect all the information that you have about that thing subconsciously, and then it colors it. We call it perception, but it actually happens in the subconscious part of the brain. And it puts a coloring stamp on it, positive or negative, and it'll shut down your muscles so that you legitimately, we test it. We'll have people say a word, and then we measure the muscle strength, and then muscles will actually decrease in function.
Mm.
And I did a clinical study with this years ago with 3M, and it was fascinating, watching how the muscles actually shut down.
Wow.
And so the analogy we tell people, it's kind of like, if you have these negative thoughts and you're reliving it, you are reliving the trauma
Mm. Yeah.
over and over. The faster you get to surrendering, the faster you get to forgiving, the faster you get to gratitude, the less damage there is in your body. Because it's like, if you're trying to work, if you're trying to live life, and your brain is saying go, 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 that's like putting the foot on the gas pedal. But if
Mm.
you're having these negative thoughts and emotions that you're reliving over and over, that's like putting your foot on the brake
Right.
at the
Okay.
same time. So if you're driving your car with one foot on the gas and you're mashing the gas and one foot on the brake, what's happening?
I go nowhere.
going nowhere fast. The
It's
tires are
spinning out of
spinning.
control.
Yes, wear and tear goes through the roof. That's what we do all the time with our bodies.
Mm,
So it manifests with degenerative joints. It manifests with fibromyalgia. It manifests with achy muscles. It manifests with foggy brain. All of these different things can pop up because you're basically pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. And if you're reliving those thoughts, think about what I said. Your muscles get shut down.
mm,
You physically and literally don't feel like getting up off the couch. If you do it for too long, that is depression, depressed function.
right.
Your own brain is causing a depressed function. It's not a vitamin or a vitamin P uh, deficiency or vitamin Prozac deficiency. It's not
Yeah.
because you're deficient in these man-made chemicals. It's because our brain and our system has wired that shutdown mechanism because we're reliving it, because we're not applying the God-given knowledge that we have to reset it naturally.
Wow. So that is huge. So now we know what's going on when we replay and replay and
Yeah,
replay that play that is
right.
not a good play. So what would you recommend people to do a step-by-step process? Do you have a step-by-step process? Is like, first of all, acknowledge it. Second of all,
Yeah.
maybe journal, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, so we have to have awareness. So a lot of times we aren't aware. That stuff can come to the surface. And so I'm not a huge fan of talk therapy because it relives the trauma a lot of times, except in the beginning when you bring awareness to a situation, then there could be some good value there. So if you have awareness of what it is, um, then go ahead and start working on those three areas, which are forgiveness, surrender, and gratitude. And so, awareness of a problem first. Journaling will bring out the subconscious. When you do a physical act, that will bring out the subconscious. I'm going to teach you also how to identify when there's a lie that you believe. So our definition of an excuse is nothing more than a reason wrapped in the skin of a lie. I heard Pastor Greg Locke say that years ago, and it stuck with me.
Yeah, that's good. Say it again.
Yep. So an excuse is nothing more than a reason wrapped in the skin of a lie. And when there's a lie that we believe about ourselves or the world subconsciously, that's conflict. When it's not true with the actual reality of who we are and our identity, it causes a shutdown mechanism. So you can actually see this with excuses coming out of your mouth. So
Mm,
if you say an excuse, it means there's a lie that you believe. Identify that lie is one step closer to building awareness. Then you can uh, take care of the lie by basically repenting, which means change one mind's direction 180 degrees, just go in the opposite direction. So if the lie is about yourself, like I'm ugly, then that would mean I'm beautiful and I'm made in God's image. You know what I
nice.
mean? It literally is switching that around. I'm going to give you a practical example. I was giving a talk on this exact subject in the mindset class, and I finished and I was walking out back to my office, and one of my clinic directors said, "Have you finished the cardiometabolic program yet?" I was designing it at the time, and I said, "No, I don't have time for that," which is an excuse. And so I heard myself say it right after I gave a class on excuses. So I wrote it down because I legitimately didn't have time in that moment. And I 3 days later went to work on, okay, what's the lie I believe? The lie I believed was that if I delegated it, they couldn't do as good a job as what I would do.
Mm,
But I was 3 months into not doing anything at this point because of my schedule. So I ended up delegating it to a staff member, another doctor, and she ended up within a week had it back already, everything I'd asked to do. It wasn't quite right how I wanted it, so we tweaked it a little bit, and the next day it was done. And I had originally said, I just want you to start it. I'll do 95% of it, and you do 5% of it. Well, she got it done so fast that I said, keep going. And the reality of the matter is she did 98% of it. I did 2% of it, and it ended up having to do with our cardiometabolic program. This was pre-COVID, and we have technology here where we measure the arteries
Mm.
as far as the lining, the endothelial lining of the arteries, how stiff they are. Well, with COVID and vaccine injuries, things like that, we were able to measure the damage that was being done in real time, and we started treating people with natural diet and lifestyle therapies. We're the only clinic that does this with this technology worldwide. All the other clinics, like the Mayo Clinic and the universities, are using medications, and we are outperforming them drastically.
Wow.
So my point with that is this young female doctor all of a sudden became the world expert in this particular area because we're the only clinic doing it. Not only that, so that's a big feather in her cap as a young physician, but at the same time, it freed me up. I had this extra time that I could work on my other projects, and I could work on more CEO duties of the clinic here, Official Synapse. And so it was a win-win by identifying the excuse and then working on the lie. So that's a practical example. And I had to delegate and surrender and trust the process. And then through the whole thing, have gratitude for what came about. And so, and I had to surrender like my ego because she ended up making it better than I had in my head. And
Right?
so
That's awesome.
there's humility that pops in there as well that had to come out to allow the process to happen. Does
That's
that make
awesome.
sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, sometimes it's hard to let go, like you
Yeah.
said, because you know what you want, but trusting
Yes.
and delegating, that's a great example of those emotions.
Yeah.
Even fear, is she going to do the right thing?
Yes. Yep. And so here's I'm gonna teach on one other thing here because this is really important. A lot of our weaknesses are really our strengths being overdone. And so one of a potential weakness is like being too controlling. If I was just like, I'm gonna do it myself, that actually comes from a place of love and nurturing. When we basically love and nurture in excess, it becomes controlling. So I'll say it a different way. If my strength is confidence and I'm overconfident, it can become arrogance when
Right,
done in excess. If I'm trusting and I'm over trusting, it become gullibility in excess. If you're supporting and you over support and over support, you can become self-sacrificing and a victim. So the controlling weakness comes from a place of love and nurturing. Like when a mother has a child, she will feed and nurse and clothe and snuggle and protect that child, control that child's entire circumstances, environment, and that comes from a place of love. But as that child grows up, if mom doesn't learn to surrender that controlling the environment because you cannot control the world around you, then they get feedback of mom, you're trying to control me, you're too controlling, and they end up with empty nest syndrome because they're still trying to control the environment if they haven't learned to surrender some of the love and nurturing that they have. But controlling comes from excess of love and nurturing. For me, in my clinic, it's my baby. It's what God put on my heart. So
right.
I love and nurture and want it to be good. And I had to surrender some of that to allow someone else to come in and bring stuff that was better than what I even had on my in my head. And so it's a exact same scenario. I'm not equating my clinic to a child, but you get the idea,
I
right?
get the idea. It's awesome
Okay.
too. Because the other thing that plays into here, into this situation is trust.
Yes.
Trust
Yep.
that God's got it
Yep.
and trusting that it will be good and all things are good with that God guides, right? And of
Yes.
course, you know, in Proverbs 4:23, it says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
Yeah. Well,
So
and people trust is not just that it's going to work out. I want people to hear this because sometimes God will have you in a dark place and you feel buried and you feel like it's a problem, but that dark place is really more of a like you're being planted. You're not being buried. You're being planted for a reason and for a season. And so sometimes he will put you through those tests so that you can have a testimony that will serve you and many others and God down the road. So just because it's a dark place does not mean it didn't work out the way it was supposed to.
yeah,
Because sometimes you're being planted, sometimes you're not being buried, you're being planted.
well, and sometimes you have to pause. That's why you're
Sometimes you have to
planted.
pause. Yes.
Yes. because
Yep.
sometimes, I mean, God knows the beginning from the end, obviously, and
Yes.
we get ahead of ourselves, and He knows the beginning from the end. So therefore, we have to trust that if things aren't going as fast, or we don't feel like we're doing what we should be doing, that there's a reason for it, and we just
Yeah.
need to pause and trust that in perfect timing, everything comes to fruition.
Yep. Absolutely. Become an inverse paranoid. Basically, what that means is just think that everything, good or bad, that happens to you is because God wants it to happen to you for the greater good.
Yeah, so
So
the saying that I'm hearing today is it's look at what happened to me. It's not no, it's look at what happened for you.
for me, yep, that's exactly right.
So it's all a matter of changing our mindset and
Yes.
shifting that from victim to victor.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep, exactly right. And that's how, and I've said many times when things have been really tight and really, really tough, and I've said, man, this is going to be some crazy way that you work this out, God. Like, it's like, I can't wait to see what you're about to do. And so it can be overwhelming, definitely at times, but that's why, thankfully, it's not up to us. We
Yeah,
can do anything with God. And so that is the conversation. We just have to be aligned, and we have to be in good communication so that we can understand the process more for us to keep moving, so we don't just get stuck in our darkness and dark places. And we have a saying here: when you get stuck, just ask a better question.
that's big.
Yep.
It's big.
Yeah.
And sometimes that you don't even know what the question is, but that's when you pause
That's
and
exactly
you come.
very true. Yes. Very
Wow.
true. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. So this has been absolutely amazing. I love having these conversations, and I really hope, obviously, that anyone and everyone that will listen to this will reflect on where they're at and when they're in those moments of, the darkness and
Yep.
really doing a check of, okay, who am I not forgiving? And am I even, the first thing I think you need to start with is forgiving yourself.
Yes. Yep.
That's a big
Yeah,
one.
because our goal is to, here on this planet, be in this world but not of it. But our goal is to strive for righteousness, knowing we're imperfect, and you're striving for that perfection, we're going to fall short. But Christ has covered us. He has covered that gap.
Yeah.
So all of our failures should instantly go to gratitude for Jesus covering our imperfections, taking our sins, taking it all in so that we can enter into the perfect world of heaven. And so that all of our imperfections should lead to gratitude to Jesus because of that. And so it starts with forgiveness of self. It also, there's one way you can bypass all excuses, and that is to take 100% responsibility. If you take 100% responsibility in life, there are no excuses that come out of your mouth. And the most successful people do that. There was a book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield,
Yeah.
uh, Chicken Soup for the Soul author. And that's the number one success principle of all the people he interviewed. Successful in all walks of life, they all took 100% responsibility for their results and their life. Well,
Mm,
what are you doing when you do that?
mm,
No excuses.
mm. That is a huge topic.
Yes.
I'm sitting there going, that is a great lead into maybe that should be the next thing that we talk about, because
Yeah.
where we're at in this world right now,
Yes.
and the situation with business owners and trying to find people to
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
and taking 100% responsibility for where you're at,
Yep.
that would be a big one, don't you think?
I think it would be a great solution. And so you can tell with people when they don't do that, all excuses coming out. Just think about how many lies people are believing about
Mm.
themselves and the world and other people.
Yeah, it's like stop the madness.
Yep.
I'm out.
Yep.
Take a break, and
It's
say,
happening
okay,
though.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Yes. That's right.
All right. Well, this has been absolutely amazing as always. And I just want to make sure everyone again knows that you need to go to officialsynapse.com and get that discovery call. As you can see, we're here to help you get mind, body, spirit, and be the best example of who you are and who you were created to be. So again, officialsynapse.com. Make sure you go there, and obviously go to YouTube and subscribe to Katie Hoff Ministries and to Facebook and and Rumble and Spotify, Apple. We're on all platforms. And I don't want you to miss this. And I just want you to be empowered and encouraged that you can be all that you were created to be. And so this is Katie Huff Ministries, and encouraging you to have a blessed day. And I thank you, Dr. Spurill, for all of your heart to serve, your wisdom, your education and experience. And just, I mean, what a great blessing to come from being such an amazing physician to also such an incredible Christian and servant. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
God bless you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Katie Huff with Katie Huff Ministries, and this is Bella Jean, and we're coming to you today to talk to you about setting yourself free by having first a great night's sleep. How's that going to happen? By using MyPillow. MyPillow has incredible products. Bella Jean even has her own dog bed and loves it. She sleeps well at night, so do we. Because we also have the topper, we have the pillows, we've used the sheets, we have the towels, and we even have the slippers. So we are a family that loves MyPillow as much as my Bella Jean, and I'm hoping that your dog will love it as much as ours, and that you'll go to mypillow.com/unmasked. Again, that's mypillow.com/unmasked, and you'll get incredible discounts for your family to be setting themselves free to having a great night's sleep and having an amazing holiday season with MyPillow products. Thank you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Katie Huff with Katie Huff Ministries, and I'm coming to talk to you today about setting yourself free. And what that means is it begins with taking control of your finances. So I was unfortunately introduced to a number of different financial planners that really didn't put me before their profit. And I'm glad to say that Kirk Elliott, PhD, their philosophy is people over profits. They don't rush you. They have a holistic approach. They took my SEP, they invested it into gold and silver, which obviously is diversifying. It may be for you, it may not, but I will tell you this, KirkElliottPhD.com/unmasked, they will go beyond making you comfortable and knowing where your money's going. And so I would just say, take control of your finances. Go to KirkElliottPhD/unmasked for a discount and great advice and peace of mind that you'll have.